Given the state of the world today, I thought now would be a good time to get into some facts regarding the process of dehumanization from one person to another. To start with, the word dehumanization refers to any action that is intended to disregard or oppress another person's selfhood, dignity, and sentience. There are many examples of dehumanization that I could bring up, but as this video is going to be relative to armed conflict and overseas conflict, I will provide an example that most North Americans are familiar with, which is that of Abu Ghraib and the images of Lindy England with the detainees at the prison. These images were a form of dehumanization intended to deprive the detainees of their personal dignity and selfhood at the amusement of their captors. Other such examples can exist in non combat scenarios. For example, a partner forcing their spouse to act as an animal, or using them as furniture, being placed on display for certain ethnic or religious features, or during prolonged sexual violence, systemic racism and ethnocentricity designed to other those who do not fit a certain description, and potentially things like being experimented on against your will. All of the atrocities that we can point to in human history have occurred because of our capacity to dehumanize one another. Once it happens that you look at another being and truly believe that they're utterly beneath you in every way, it makes it very easy to cause them pain. Even individuals who are not ordinarily violent or malicious, such as in the case of microaggressions, which is that which a minority race experience on a daily basis from those who would not even describe themselves as racist or harmful, but this does increase the propensity toward dehumanization, and it will automatically cause an increase of aggressive and harmful behavior. Nobody is immune to this. How often is it that someone online has angered you so much that you may have told them to kill themselves? How often is it that someone you've never really talked to face has posted something online that is so contradictory to what you believe that you just wish they would die? Or if you've seen a politician on the news that you hate, if you wish them to just die? What about people who have different political beliefs to you? What about people who you believe are actually harming others and thus do not deserve the same rights and dignity as you because they're simply immoral? Perhaps that is not something you specifically, as the person hearing these words, could understand. And if that's true, I do commend you. But I know for me, I have absolutely encountered people who have angered me so much that I no longer counted them as my peer and instead wished harm to them. This is the very beginning of the dehumanizing process. It is something that is hardwired and conditioned in us on a neurological level through something known in sociology as in group and out group behavior. An in group is someone who is the same as you, the same religion, the same age, the same ethnicity, the same race. And an out group is someone who does not align with any of your core identity values. For example, you might be a white person. You might view someone who is black and Christian as being your in group, while someone who is black and Muslim is your out group. If you are a Christian, you would identify them as Christian, thus, they're on your team and would be more willing to disregard the difference of race. The same is true of all human races. If you are non white, you're most likely more trusting of those who are similar to you and not as trusting of white people. And this is for good reason. This is because the in group out group mentality is something that exists on an evolutionary standpoint. It is an actual adaptation to foreign interlopers and strangers, and this is not an attempt to demonize anyone who has ever acted this way, which is every human on the planet. This stuff does not exist at random. It exists because it is protective, but it is the basis of how our brains actually categorize and organize our relationships with other people. I discussed different races here, but an in group can actually be comprised of literally any group of people to which one strongly identifies. This can be anything, even down to trivial things like sports teams and universities, or if you're in the UK, like schoolhouses and shit like that. Um, when someone in our in group misbehaves, our tendency is to forgive them and display leniency toward them. But if an out group individual misbehaves, they are often judged far more harshly and punitively than one's peers. This is the start of what can form into racist and abusive behavior toward your fellow man who ultimately do not differ from you in construction or psychology in a truly significant manner. We may have different features in different cultures, but all human beings share the same hallmarks delineated by our genetic composition. and one cannot be removed from that no matter what they say, do, or think. In order to ready yourself to hurt someone else, it is necessary to place that person beneath you on a cognitive level. In the military, enemy combatants are described with very specific language, often pejorative and mocking language, and killing can be compared to activities such as firing rounds on a shooting range, hitting a button on a computer, firing a rocket, which is fun, or even playing a video game. In my own personal life, I witnessed dehumanization and experienced it firsthand. This is a little bit of, again, self disclosure, just because that's apparently what I do here now. Those who did not comply with our in group demands were immediately demonized. They were thieves, liars, idiots, and snitches. Snitching was the ultimate taboo, and once you were a rat, you were a rat. You were something that could be squashed underneath someone's boot. Everything about you, your humanity, your identity, your family, prior friendships, none of that mattered because you betrayed us. And that gave us full license to treat you as cruelly as we wanted, and that gave us amusement because you deserved to be treated badly because you were no longer like us. I was dehumanized very seriously myself. Um, I was an object of sexual gratification and I was a specialist, and there was nothing more about me that mattered to my group. And if I failed to perform my duties, I would have been murdered because my value was solely dictated by how well I performed sexually and in my enforcement and delivery duties. Because of how easy it was for those in a position of authority to exploit my vulnerabilities, my age, my level of education, my prior psychiatric conditions, etc., in order to convince me that the person in front of me was not deserving of the same basic human rights and dignity as I was, and conversely, I did not recognize that I as well was being deprived of those same basic rights. Given the state of the world right now, I'm noticing a lot of language that is trending toward the extremism and radicalization that I experienced as a child. I will talk about something particularly polarizing with regards to Israel and Palestine. It's quite difficult for me to hear. As someone with an extensive history of indoctrination into violence, my caution today and my purpose for speaking of these things so bluntly is to encourage anyone who is following this conflict as it unfolds to regard it with compassion and dignity first. People may not agree with you, they may not believe as you do, they might be Zionists or terrorists, but they are human beings. They grieve, they suffer, they rejoice, they have thoughts and opinions. Some of them sing along to horrible tunes on the radio and pick up their children from school. Have some of these people caused harm? Yes. Are they potentially an enemy combatant caught in the crossfire? Yes. But that still does not give anyone the excuse to deprive someone else of their basic humanity. And this does include people who may not afford you the same dignity that you are affording them. It's not easy. Some people are truly vicious, truly awful, truly damaged, and irreparable. They would, if given a moment, cause deep harm to you and your family. This is very true, but they're still human beings. This is what humans do. We are animals. We are beholden to our physical structure, and sometimes that is an imperfect structure that creates the conditions of psychopathy and sadism that ends up with children like me getting trafficked for profit. By no means am I advocating for a lack of self defense, but I do strongly advocate for one to put their best efforts into creating an environment of enduring peace and diplomacy, and to preserve life as much as can be done. This starts in your community. It starts in the people that you speak with every day. It starts with the media that you consume. It starts within you, within your emotions, your senses of pride and grief and wonder, and all of your strengths and vulnerabilities as well. Ultimately, it starts by recognizing your own humanity and extending that perception to every single person that you encounter. Thank you very much for listening and have a great day.